All right, some big news today, Rube.
Huge.
Eagles signed Andre Sachre.
Emergency pod.
This is not an emergency. Howie gave us a favor here to the 53-man roster. Give me all your breakdowns.
I like Sachre. Good special teamer.
Yes.
And he can't hurt special teams. We certainly could use another playmaker. I think he was up 2 games.
3. So
3 games.
Done. Yeah.
So he was done. So no more elevations. And he made an impact in the games he played. He's a good player. And, as an emergency safety, there are worse in the world.
He might be better than – never mind. All right, this is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. We're live here at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia, our new home away from home. We like it here quite a bit. I'm Dave Zangaro. He's Reuben Frank. We have a bunch to get to today.
And we're wearing matching hoodies, which we did not plan.
Did not plan, sadly. We could have told people we did.
that would not be.
It's better that we don't.
Not be a good idea.
We do have a lot to talk about today. It's kind of middle of the season. We've already told everyone.
The old 47% mark.
We both hate it. It really kind of ruins a lot of
symmetry.
Things. The symmetry of the season. It ruins a lot of the things we like to do. But we're going to treat this as the halfway point.
It doesn't ruin them.
It
ruins them.
It ruins them. But we're going to kind of treat this like the halfway point of the season. We have a bunch of stuff in that vein to talk about. And then later on, we'll talk about the tackling issues and some things we've seen with Jalen Hurts recently. But big picture, Rube, it's kind of fun right now, right? I know that this town was all excited about the World Series, and rightfully so. But now that the Phillies are done, people are going to start turning their attention to the undefeated Eagles, and it's going to be a really fun stretch run.
Now, I was thinking about how, if the Phillies lose the World Series after leading 2-1, and fans are so lucky to have an undefeated team to turn to, it's like therapy. Like, all right, Phillies are done. All right, you have this undefeated team here. You can kind of, throw your energy and your emotion into. I don't know what you did Sunday. I spent all day in front of the TV watching football. I'm sure you did that for a portion of the day. And the one thing that struck me is just how many bad teams there are. And
it's tough to find good teams.
It's tough to find good teams. Now, how many winning teams are there in the league right now? There's 3 teams in the AFC East. No, the whole AFC East has a winning record now, right? Because the Patriots are over 500. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Ravens look pretty good. They always find a way. Tennessee, and then the Chiefs and Chargers. But in the NFC, other than the NFC East, the Vikings, who the Eagles have beaten, and Seattle, those are your winning teams. There's only 2 outside the NFC East. Eagles don't play Seattle, but they already beat the Vikings. So the Eagles really have a 2-game lead or a 1+ game lead on everybody in the NFL.
Yeah, you look at it that way.
They haven't played the Giants yet, but the Giants lost to Seattle, so they got 2 losses now. They've got a head-to-head over Dallas. They got a head-to-head over Minnesota, who might be the second best team in football now, and they beat them by 2 touchdowns. So we spent a lot of time looking for things to criticize with the Eagles, the run defense, and all these things. Every team has 3 or 4 areas like that. And the Eagles don't have as many as other teams. They're the best team in the league. And, you watch Buffalo, who everybody figured they were the best team and the Eagles were number 2. They go into the Meadowlands, and the Jets are improved, but Buffalo looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They did not look like a great team.
Quarterback didn't look good.
Quarterback did not look good.
And now the quarterback's hurt.
Do they have a time frame on him?
Haven't heard.
He's got some nerve issue.
I saw a UCL.
Yeah, UCL. So, I think every ranking is going to have the Eagles number 1 now. I mean, Buffalo, you could make a case for them even with one early loss, but they're the best team in football, and it's really not all that close.
Yeah, and they've just been so consistent. And I know people are going to say, well, who have they beaten? Well, who have any? Look at the NFC. Who have any of these teams beaten?
They beat Dallas, and they beat Minnesota.
Yeah, and that's the point. I mean, they've beaten the 2 other best teams in the league. And sure, Minnesota was early. Dallas didn't have Dak. But, I mean, it's not like any of these other teams are playing. Because if you look around, the football, it's a weird year. And the Eagles have somehow found a way to kind of rise above all the weirdness. And they're just winning these games and they're winning them relatively easily. they've had a 14-point lead in every game this year. Now, some of them have gotten close toward the end, but
they didn't lead Houston by 14, right? Just by 12.
Sure, they've had double-digit leads.
Yeah, thank you.
We
strive for accuracy here on the Eagle Eye Podcast.
Are you telling that to?
I'm with the camera.
Okay.
Ben, Tom.
Yeah. Double-digit.
The woman with the camera.
Double-digit leads, though. and so, I mean, they've done everything right.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, we're looking at things that need to be improved. We'll get to some of those in a little bit, because I think that's the most encouraging thing about this team is that they haven't been perfect and they still have a perfect record.
Yeah, the consistency has been huge. Defensively, they had one game where they gave up more than 17 points. It was the opener, and Detroit got hot at the end of the game and scored some points. They've held every other team to 17 or fewer points. And the offense, I guess Arizona was kind of here and there. It wasn't a great showing, but for the most part, they've been scoring in the mid to high 20s, a couple games over 30. They're second in the league in scoring. The Eagles haven't led the NFL in scoring in 73 years.
Probably not going to do it this year.
Probably not. The Chiefs probably will. They're number 2 to the Chiefs right now. They're like 2 points back.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot, actually. Yeah.
If the Chiefs continue at their current rate of like 30, the Eagles have to average 32 and change the rest of the way to pass them. It's not outlandish. It would take one Kansas City, 7-3 game in bad weather or something. Can't see Mahomes putting up 7 against anyone, but it's kind of crazy. They haven't led the league in scoring in 73 years.
Yeah, not since you've covered them.
Well, I was a sidebar guy that first year. But yeah, the offensive consistency has been really, when they get the ball, you just feel like they're going to score.
Yeah, you feel comfortable with this team. You just do. And there have been some moments when they're on defense, you go, don't really love what they're doing right here. Don't love the game plan. But then they get the turnovers. And that's been a big theme this week. And I think I'm partially to blame for it. But it's trying to figure out if these takeaways and their turnover margin, which is plus 15 right now, if that's sustainable. It might be. They think it is, because and that's the way they should think about it is, Nick I didn't ask him about luck, but he brought up luck because that's something we hear so much. Turnovers are in part because of luck. You have to have the ball bounce the right way. You have to have the defense not catch a pick that's there. So I think luck has something to do with it.
Fortune, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But it also is them being coached well and then making the plays when they need to.
Just having good players. And I think I wrote this in my 10 observations off the game Thursday night, and Gannon said the same thing today. They're catching the balls that they didn't catch last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that simple. And, you have a safety in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson who is something you're going to be writing about. His ability to make difficult interceptions, balls that and Gannon made the point that usually when you have an interception, it's not a ball thrown right to you that's an easy catch.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually you got to sky for it, you got to catch it right off the ground, you're diving. They're not easy plays, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has mastered those plays.
Yeah.
It's incredible what a knack he has, and I just every time he makes one of those plays, and it's 4 straight games with an INT, he's got 5 in that span. I just think that's a play they wouldn't have made last year. And those are game change. And it all works hand in hand and we saw this Thursday night where this is what happens when teams try to run the ball against them. And Houston had a lot of success running the ball, but the offense puts so much pressure on the other team. They take you out of that, out of that running game and force you to throw. And that's when they get pressure, and that's when they get interceptions. And that's what we saw in the fourth quarter defensively. And you just feel like it's coming. These bad quarterbacks or average quarterbacks like Davis Mills and these guys, they just don't have the firepower offensively in the passing game to be able to make plays when they have to make plays. And as Gannon calls it, known pass.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about complementary football, and that's where the Eagles offense puts so much pressure on another team, takes them out of what they are trying to do.
Yeah, or it makes them be something they're not. And we've seen that with teams playing the Chiefs for the last how many years, right? Like you go into a team or you go into a game against a team like that and you think, well, we can't settle for a field goal here. We have to be super aggressive. And some teams don't want to do that, and it forces them out of their comfort zone. And we've kind of reached that territory with the Eagles. And they don't have the reputation like the Chiefs do with Mahomes quite yet. But I think there's going to be a point where teams look at the Eagles and say, well, they're going to score points on us. We have to kind of keep the pedal to the metal here. We can't afford to take 3 or to not get points on a possession. So they're going to go ahead and go for it in situations where they might not. And then you start to kind of dictate situational football. And we know how much emphasis they put on those situations. And you can cause some of it yourself, right, on defense. You can get an early stop on first down and put them in those known pass situations. But your offense can help you do that too in a way. And we always talk about complementary football, and they've been so good at that this year.
Yeah. Yeah. It's 53 guys and offense and defense helping each other. And when they keep doing that, they're really hard to beat.
They are. And we'll see what happens down the stretch. The schedule does get a little tougher, but I mean, this is it's still even if I want to ask you this actually. Do you think it will be beneficial for them to lose a game at some point?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, I know people make that case, but
it's something we hear a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a fear that they go undefeated in the regular season. And we're a long way from that.
If they go undefeated, they're going to be the 1 seed. So
they're going to be the 1 seed, barring a pretty big collapse here.
I mean, if Minnesota wins out and Eagles lose 2 games,
yeah,
they're the 2 seed, and we're going back to U.S. Bank. But
anything but that. Any other?
See you at the Mall of America.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings, I mean, still have to play the Giants twice.
Got to play the Cowboys again.
But I mean, they have a really good shot at the number 1 seed. I don't think this team is the kind of team that would get any benefit from losing a game.
Yeah.
Maybe there are teams out there that need to be kind of reminded that they're
humbled a little bit.
Yeah, need to be humbled a little bit and reminded that they're not infallible. But this team you don't see that. You don't see any of that stuff from them. They just they have really bought into Nick's philosophy about focusing on the next play and the next snap and the next rep and the next meeting and next press conference, and nothing gets to them.
You want to go through position by position grades here?
Yeah.
Now, my work is done already for me when I sit down to do these midseason grades. It's just an average of the grades they've gotten after each game.
So it's basically an average story, you're
saying. Yeah, it is an average story, which is what I do. That's all I'm here for. No, but it's a very scientific process for an unscientific process, if that makes sense.
It doesn't, but let's do it.
Yeah. Well, it's scientific in the fact that these are the numbers, but the numbers are just my assessment. So looking at the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, he ends up with an A-, 3.71, so a very high A-. He's been great. He's just been great. And there have been some games where he's been less than perfect, but man, you look at the numbers so far, he is putting together one heck of a season.
And he's really eliminated he had some great games last year.
Mm-hmm.
He had some really bad games. He's eliminated those.
Has not had a bad game. His worst grade this year has been a B.
And who was that?
That was game 5.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they scored 20 points. They kind of struggled offensively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary we both kind of knew he was going to get better, but this time last year, it was like, is he the guy? What does he have to do? I mean, we're way beyond that.
Shane Steichen's been asked twice whether or not he saw this type of season coming from Jalen Hurts. And both times he said, yeah, of course. Like, I expect it. And I'd like to hook him up to a lie detector test for that one, because maybe he did. Maybe they really did believe that Jalen was going to be this good. I'm not shocked. I am surprised.
I looked back at my predictions for him.
Mm-hmm.
I predicted all his stats before the season, and I had him with 29 passing touchdowns. I think 9 interceptions or 7 interceptions. I think 9 interceptions, 65%. So I had him growing a lot as a quarterback, but I think the accuracy has been the one that has blown my mind. It's something I wrote about the other day. I mean, he's at 68%. There's a guy 2 years ago was at 52%. He was last in the league 2 years ago. Now he's like fourth in the league. He's just putting the ball exactly where he wants to. And I asked Nick about this the other day, I think Friday morning maybe, how much of his growth in accuracy is physical and just he's got that quicker release. He's cleaned up his delivery. His footwork's better. And when you work on all those, you're going to be more, the ball's going to go where you want it. But also how much is just being able to quickly diagnose things and understand what the defense is doing, understand coverages and blitzes. And it's probably half of each, 50% of each.
I think it's more mental.
I think it's a lot of it's physical, though.
He knows where to go with the football.
He knows where to go with it, but he's really cleaned up his motion, his delivery. He's coming up a little. He's throwing a little more overhand. But it's both. I mean, both. What percentage it is, I don't know. But
there's never an answer to those types of questions. I would think it's more mental than it is, and physical has improved. But you watch him even in this last game, like a ton of cover 2, right? He knows exactly where to go with the football, and it's not like those are tight window throws. But he's just hitting the spots. He has better answers against the blitz too, which, all those things worked against him last season. There were ways that you knew you could get Jalen Hurts off his game. And we saw it was on tape for everyone, for the league. They're not there. Like those easy defensive answers they don't exist against him anymore. Now, there are certainly things the teams are going to try to do. They're still going to try to blitz him, but based on what we've seen the Eagles offense give him those answers and him be able to fully understand, okay, if this is what happens, I have the quick answer here and take it. The growth there to me is what's been most impressive.
How many bad passes has he thrown this year?
Not many. There have been a few that are off.
A few.
Even in the last game against Houston, I thought he missed a few early, but we've seen him miss some early and then just find his rhythm.
Yeah. It's been really interesting to watch. It's been fun to watch him grow. And, he started 27 games in his career. He's 24 years old. Like, where's he going to go from here? It's kind of exciting.
It is exciting. Running back, I'll say all the offensive positions ended up with A-minuses at different levels of that, but makes sense. They're the second highest scoring team in the league. And Miles Sanders has been so good. So good. I don't know if they're going to pay him, but he's going to get paid.
Yeah, as running backs do, he will get paid. I think he's going to be here. I'm starting to think he will be. Running backs, there's conventional wisdom says they're interchangeable.
To a degree.
He's a special player. And, I mean, his ability to change the way he runs from this guy who's always trying to, dance around and bust a big one, which he hasn't done lately. I mean, he hasn't really busted a big one since the middle of last year, the middle of 2020. But his average keeps going up, which tells you he's not dancing. He's decisive. He's running tough and physical and hard up the middle. Disciplined, not wasting any time. His jump cuts, man, I love his jump cuts. He sees things so well. He's got great vision. And he's tough, and he protects the ball. He hasn't fumbled this year. Mm-hmm. Knock on wood. I mean, he's one of the top backs in the league. He's a lock to become only the fourth back in history to begin his career with 750 or more yards and a 4.6 average in each of his first 4 seasons. Mm-hmm. The other 3 are Gale Sayers, Jim Brown, and Nick Chubb. That's pretty good.
Nick Chubb is really good. He's
really
every
good.
Time you look up a running back stat, he's at the top.
Yeah, he's really good. Him and Jamal Charles are you like, is Miles the first guy ever? And it's always Nick Chubb or Jamal Charles. But he's in great company, and the thing you look for when do you want to sign this running back is signs of decline, because they have a short shelf life, but he's shown none of that. And I think, Doug didn't use him a lot. His 2 years under Doug, and Nick didn't use him all that much last year.
I mean, he almost has the same amount of attempts through 8 games this year that he had in 12 last year. He had 137 last year. He's up to 131.
What's his career high? Like 187 or something?
179 as a rookie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's on pace to obliterate that.
Yeah.
And we'll see if he stays healthy. That's always the biggest thing with Miles. And we know he missed 9 games over the previous 2 seasons. So this is great. And it's very encouraging. He's got to remain available. And
I feel like he will.
There's no reason to think he won't other than the history.
Right.
Because he's running. And he was so much fun in that Houston game. He was running so hard. He was seeking out contact, which you might not want to do all the time. But I thought the situations he picked in that game were worthwhile. And I think that does something to a team when you see the running back throw a stiff arm and lower his shoulder and fight for extra yards. That's fun. And that fires up the offensive line. It fires up Jalen Hurts.
And the defense. I mean, it fires up everyone. Yeah. And, he's so good late in games because he's not out there getting 27 carries. Mm-hmm. He might go into the fourth quarter with 14 or 12 and he's fresh. And, Shane's used Boston a little bit and Gainwell a little bit. And Miles is such a weapon late in games when they're trying to run out the clock because he's got those fresh legs.
Next one is receiver, another A-, 3.62, so a little higher than running back, which I think bears out. Lower than Jalen Hurts, who's been exceptional. A.J. Brown is the star of this show, and I'm okay with the way they've been using them. Devontae Smith has kind of taken a back seat, which when you have a guy like A.J. Brown, it's kind of unavoidable.
Yeah, and he'll have his day, and he's had a couple big games. He's averaging 38 yards per game the last 5. That's going to come up, and the minute any team decides, well, Devontae's not going to hurt us, let's, devote some extra resources to A.J. Brown, Devontae's going to have 160 yards again.
Yeah. A.J.'s so good.
He's terrifyingly good.
He is so good. And he's still so young. He's 25. He's 25. They have this guy for the next 4 seasons.
I like the 4 seasons.
Tight end.
New Jersey. Did you know they're from New Jersey?
Tight end. Also an A-. Dallas Goedert. Right up there with A.J. Brown when you're talking about important pieces to that offense.
If you ranked all the wide receivers in the league and all the tight ends, who'd be higher? Dallas or A.J.?
I'm confused.
Who would be higher on the list? Goddard on the list of the best tight ends?
Oh, Goddard.
Or A.J.? Probably would.
Goddard's 2.
Goddard's probably 2.
Goddard's 2.
I mean, you can make a case for Mark Andrews. He's hurt now, but
best availability or best ability is availability.
Buddy used to say, Buddy's going to, and we would quote him even though we couldn't understand what he was saying.
You knew what he was getting at.
We
kind of like me, messing up the quote, but you knew what I was getting at there.
But, yeah, I mean, and Travis Kelce's is number 1, but he ain't blocking like Dallas Goedert.
Nope.
He ain't blocking anybody. But what a weapon. My goodness.
So good. And the other guys, Jack Stoll's made a few catches. Calcaterra has 1. I'm okay with the way they're using him. It's not. Yes, maybe you look at the pure numbers and you say Jack Stoll's playing an awful lot to have a handful of catches, but who you taking him away from? Doesn't bother me one bit.
Nope.
Offensive line, A-, 3.67. They've been so good, and there have been some injuries there too, which makes it even more impressive. They've gotten healthy now, but that unit is as good as those skill players are playing. The offensive line is the reason it all works.
Yeah, and we've had bad offensive lines here for so long. I mean, like from the entire 80s and into the 90s. Mm-hmm. And it all kind of turned around when they drafted Trey Thomas in 98. And they didn't have a Pro Bowl offensive lineman for 20 years. Yeah. They've had like 11 since then. And, you kind of take those guys for granted, but they're just so steady, so consistent, so dominant. And there's not a lot of offensive lines that are just fun to watch. These guys are.
They're fun to watch. You're right. That's a good way to put it. They're so athletic. They play so well together too. That you can tell that they've been playing together a long time, which is the case for most of them, or like in Landon Dickerson's case, him and Mailata just get it, and him and Kelce just get it.
Yeah, it's funny how Mailata and Dickerson are like complete polar personality opposites.
Yeah. I don't think they are. I think to us they are.
Okay. All right, what's next?
No, you don't think so?
No, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, next we go to defensive line. This is a little trickier because pass rush has been there, but the Eagles have been gashed in the run game, and some of that goes to every level of the defense. They ended up with a B plus 3.25. It's a weird thing because like in the last game they got a B. They got pressure on Davis Mills, but they also gave up a ton in the run game. So it's a little tougher to figure out defensive grades than it is offensive for that reason. But it still has some players playing at extremely high levels. Javon Hargrave obviously recently has been carrying that torch.
Yeah. Now, does that include all the overhang players?
Yes.
So Reddick's in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing about all the rushing yards,
I've officially stopped using Sam linebacker for Reddick.
Okay.
Because it's just misleading.
Yeah, he's not a linebacker.
Yeah.
Although he dropped into coverage and made a nice play.
Yeah, but so does Josh Sweat, and he's a defensive end.
Yeah,
they play the same position.
They do. So, I've written a lot about the run defense and the bad tackling. The thing is, like, it hasn't hurt them yet, and there's games it might if they play like that against Saquon or Derrick Henry or Tony Pollard and Zeke. But I kind of get what Gannon's doing. Like, he just doesn't think you can beat the Eagles running for 5 yards a carry.
He's been right so far.
So they'll have to defend differently when they face some really good backs, and we'll see that fairly soon. But it's hard to really, drop their grade because of that. So I kind of agree with, even though it's not your opinion, it's empirical. Kind of think would you go? B plus. Yeah.
They've got a ton of pressure.
They have
a ton of pressure.
They've pressured well, especially late in games.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the big rotation.
Yeah, and the football. When you're talking about complementary football, you have your offense is getting these leads, and then the defense gets to pin its ears back a little bit. Linebacker comes in with a solid B. I think early in the season they had a bunch of A's, and we haven't seen. I don't think they've played at that level recently. Still competent linebacker play, which is encouraging after the last few years here. Honestly, it hasn't been that good. I still think they're solid.
Yeah, I haven't seen the playmaking out of Kaiser. We talked about this, that I'd like to the last month or so. You don't really notice him. I think he's missed a lot of tackles. I think TJ's been really good for the most part.
Mm-hmm. TJ's been pretty good in coverage too.
Yeah, he has. Like to see more. And, I asked Gannon about Nakobe Dean. I'd kind of like to see him mixed in there for, find something he's comfortable with, something he can do well, find a package for him, see what he can do. I wouldn't mind seeing that, but that's not going to happen as long as these guys are healthy.
And as long as they're it's working, they're winning, you're not going to switch it up. But I get your point there. Secondary, they have an A minus, and a lot of this is, man, they're taking the football away.
They're doing everything you'd want a secondary to do. I mean, they're knocking down passes, they're getting takeaways, they're not giving up big plays. It's the best secondary you've seen around here in a long time.
And we thought it would be. It's nice to see it play out the way you thought it would, because they have so much talent there. And if it wasn't playing out this way, I think I'd be questioning the scheme more than anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mean, we have to see what it looks like, obviously.
Yeah.
But with the players they have, just the takeaways alone, 5 picks for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, 3 each for Slay and Bradbury. Maddox has one, I think, but it was a heck of an interception. It was that leaping grab. It's just such a solid unit. And look, Marcus Epps hasn't made splash plays, but he's just solid.
Yeah, he's played well.
Yeah, it's not like he might be the weak link on this, but he's still playing at a pretty high level.
Could have had Andrew Adams.
And then special teams as the weakest part of this team, they're a B minus.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That seems a little high.
No, well, they've had good moments, and it seems high because they're the weakest part. But we're looking for things that are the weakest part, and you look at they haven't had big returns, but we've had the Zach McPherson plays. He's been outstanding. Jake Elliott's been solid. They had Cameron Dicker hit a game winner. Aaron Sipas has been better. It's still warm, so we'll see what happens when the weather changes. But what this tells me is that, yes, they're the weakest part of this team, but I think there's kind of a spotlight on it because the other two units are playing so well.
To me, it's a C unit, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I know what the numbers say.
That's what the numbers say.
Yeah, can't argue with the numbers.
And it's an average of that, obviously. And the last few weeks, they've been their lowest grades, C-, C+, C. They had an A before that, a few Bs mixed in there. That's what the numbers tell me.
It's a C unit, period. Dang it.
Okay. And I get why you're saying that, but I think
fake punts, blocked field goals, bad returns. I just haven't seen much. A lot of bad plays.
Some good plays, though.
Some good plays.
Yeah. I mean, Shaq McPherson has been a star.
He's been great.
Kyron Johnson has been really good. Jake Elliott's been solid. The punter's been fine.
Jake Elliott hasn't really kicked that much.
Yeah, but he's been solid. He's missed 2 kicks. One was a block and one was 54-yarder.
I'd like to make that kick.
Sure. Who wouldn't?
That's like a 70% kick now.
Okay. He stinks. Where's
No,
Cameron
I didn't
Dicker?
say that. I didn't say he stinks.
Where's Cameron Dicker when you need him? Winning games for the Chargers.
What a thing that is.
Coaching ends up with a B+, and I've been very nitpicky about the coaching. But
how can coaching not be an A? They're 8-0.
This is why we do it this way.
Yeah, maybe we should do it a different way.
Just gut feel?
Yeah.
So you can care too much about the previous game?
Well, nobody's gonna go back and add them up and see if they work out. I guarantee you, well, somebody might.
No, I think there have been things, especially earlier in the season. I didn't love some of their game plans. You know, they ended up with a C- in week 1 because they nearly blew that game, and that hurts the average quite a bit. So it's like you can look at it now and say they're 8-0 and they should clearly have an A, but there have been things along the way that haven't been great.
So, I mean, if you graded all 32 head coaches in the NFL, you can't give any of them an A, because if you did, you'd be giving a guy an A whose team has at least 2 losses, unless it's the Vikings. And the Eagles have no losses, and you're giving the guy a B.
I'm not grading the whole league. I'm grading this team, and I'm looking at, you want to do this?
So you're basically saying Eagles special teams and Eagles coaching have the same grade.
No.
They're both B.
B-, B+ is a big gap.
I'm giving the coaches an A+. You're 8-0. It's the best start in history.
I'm not giving them anything. I'm telling you what the numbers tell me.
Well,
that doesn't make any sense.
Screw the numbers. A+.
You heard it here from Reuben Frank. He does not like numbers.
That's right. I got a whole page of numbers here.
You want to get in this midseason awards?
Yeah.
MVP.
Well, what I did was I took a grade for each player, and the highest is the MVP. So I'm going Jalen Hurts.
Well, if you looked at my grades, that would work out.
It would. Yeah, Jalen is – look, he was almost their MVP last year, and he's improved tenfold.
And it goes beyond him being the quarterback. I think
absolutely.
like most teams you look at, of course the quarterback is their MVP, but this goes beyond that.
Yeah, and I mean, leadership's a really tired phrase or tired word, but the effect he has on the entire team, the entire organization, he's so respected in that building. Players on both sides of the ball look up to him. His focus, his work ethic, all those things rub off on all the other players. And that's really, to me, that's what leadership is, not some rah-rah speech after a game.
Which he does that too.
And he does that too. But leadership to me is that work ethic, that focus, that, you know, not taking shortcuts. When the quarterback has that mentality, everyone follows him, and that's what we're seeing.
So we agree on that one.
Yeah, we agree on that one.
How about Offensive Player of the Year? And we'll exclude Hurts because this is what the NFL does anyway. They exclude the MVP. Yeah. So how about Offensive Player of the Year? You have a few choices here.
You have a few choices because I think you could go Kelsey, you could go Miles.
You could say Lane.
You could say Lane. I'm going to go A.J. Brown. I just think he's really electrified this offense. And, I mean, I wouldn't argue with anybody that picked Miles or Kelsey or Lane. But I just think A.J. Brown has been – I mean, he's the only real new guy. I mean, Zach Pascal's a new guy, but he's the only real new addition on offense. And the difference, this defense, I mean, his presence makes this offense so much harder to defend. I'll go A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought about saying Dallas Goedert because he means so much to this team too. And he has a real case because not only is he making great plays as a receiver, but he's blocking really well. But the element A.J. Brown has given this offense is the reason they're averaging over 28 points per game. It doesn't happen without A.J. Brown. So he's the answer. And we'll see if he can continue it. The numbers might dip here or there based on how teams want to cover him, but man, he's so good.
Can't argue with that.
How about defensive player of the year so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's got all the big plays, and Hassan Reddick has the most sacks. I just think
actually Hargrave does.
Hargrave does now. He's got 6, I guess.
We strive for accuracy.
Reddick has 5.5, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Slay. He hasn't had the big plays the last few weeks, but I just think he is so integral to how this defense plays and how Gannon calls games. I mean, you basically have a guy just shuts down the other team's best receiver, period.
Yeah. We kind of forget about him sometimes because a lot of quarterbacks smartly just don't even bother.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you can make a case for Bradbury. You can make a case for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. You can make a case for a few people, for Reddick. But to me, everything kind of starts with Slay. It's like, all right, you shut down Terry McLaurin, and then we have 10. Then we worry about everyone else. To me, that is what the MVP is all about.
Yeah, it's a good pick. Not my pick. My pick is Hassan Reddick. And I know he doesn't lead the team in sacks anymore. But Hargrave's had 2 really good weeks, right? Reddick has consistently been their best pass rusher. He's gotten the most consistent pressure. And when you're looking at a unit that is killing it in the takeaway department, 18, it starts with pressure. And it goes beyond just his forced fumbles. He's also creating pressure that leads to interceptions and leads to big plays for the defense. To me, he deserves that.
Yeah, you can't argue with that.
Okay.
A lot of missed tackles. 10. Just saying.
He's very good.
He's really good.
And I'll live with any missed tackles. I mean, Slay's given up some passes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's given up plays.
Yeah, everyone has.
Everyone has. I'll take the pressure. I'll take the edge rusher.
He's been really good.
Very good. And he dropped into coverage the last game, which they keep bringing up because it was I don't think he's great in coverage, but he made a play there. Biggest surprise, and we mean in a good way here.
Biggest surprise in a good way. To me, I would probably say Miles, just because he's never really been the guy before for this long. And I mean, he's almost at his career high in yardage halfway through the season. We've always seen ability there. We've always seen production here, and here, but there's always been, all right, Miles missed 2 games. Miles missed 3 games. He's done it every week. I think he's just been so consistent. He's one of the best running backs in football right now. And, you knew there was always a chance he could put it together, but it'd been 3 years of injuries. Or rookie year wasn't really injuries. He just didn't play him that much. Jordan Howard was here and all that. But the fact that he's kind of taken his game to the next level, I'll go with Miles.
It's a good one. I'll give you a defensive player. And we've seen him play at a high level before, but the fact that he's doing it here after getting here pretty late, James Bradbury. I mean, this guy is a legitimate CB1 in the NFL. He's going to get paid like it after the season, which makes it really tough to think that he's going to be here beyond this year. But he's just been so solid at everything he does. I mean, teach tape stuff week after week. Gosh, I mean, he's playing. He might not be a Pro Bowler because it'd be tough to take 2 corners from the same team, but he's playing at that level right now.
If they both get 6, I don't, maybe, but yeah, and they just work so well together, Bradbury and Slay, and such a good combination. And it'll be interesting to see what happens next year because. I mean, is Zach McPherson ready to take over that role? I don't know. Sometimes Jim Johnson used to always say that he would watch young guys on special teams and kind of project what they would become on defense. Can he play or not? From that standpoint, Zach McPherson maybe has a chance. But, yeah, Bradbury's been he was in a division, so you saw him a little bit, but he's better than I thought.
Yeah, he's been excellent. How about the biggest disappointment?
Biggest disappointment? There haven't been a whole lot. You could say, Nakobe Dean's just because he hasn't gotten on the field, but that's really the other guys playing as well as they have. I'm going to have to think about that. Maybe Boston Scott hasn't really. Okay. He's a guy who really had a pretty big role on offense since he's been, or other than his first year when he didn't play, but he hasn't really been productive when he's gotten in there. A lot of it's been against, a loaded box because it's late in the game, but hasn't really been super productive. Gainwell's kind of become the number 2.
He kind of was last year, though, too.
Yeah.
In those situations.
I guess. But there's not a whole lot of disappointing guys on this team.
Well, I'll give you one. Britton Covey.
Yeah.
I really thought his success as a returner in Utah would just translate. And maybe I was naive to think that, but you watched him in college and he was so dynamic. You thought, well, if nothing else, like he's probably not going to play offense, but he'll be a good returner. I think he's been okay at times, and I still think he has the ability to be a good returner at this level, but we haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's a good name. You're talking about an undrafted rookie return. If he's your biggest disappointment, you're in good shape.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a pretty big role on the team.
Oh, it is. No, it is, and
they don't have anyone else to do it consistently. Like they can throw Devontae back there,
in
some high leverage situations, but he's not going to be your every down guy.
Greg Ward, but he's worse than Covey.
Statistically.
Covey, it's weird because Covey, he seems quick. I'm not sure how super fast he is. He gets going pretty quick. I'm not sure he's really seen the field that well. I don't think there's huge holes there anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. I don't think anyone would be doing a whole lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I expected a little more from him.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah. You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. We've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to electric vehicles. Shop your local store at NissanUSA.com today.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone at a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia, Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Rube, time to get nitpicky here. Tackling. Not great.
No. Surprising. Number 1 tackling team in the league last year, Pro Football Reference, and you take that with a grain of salt. But
Focus.
What'd I say?
Reference.
Oh, yeah. Well, they do carry those stats, but that's not. Yeah. They've gone from first to worst. They were 31st before the Texans game.
And that's the thing. No matter what you think about those stats and whether or not it's truly the worst in the league, they're much worse. That data tells you they are much worse.
Right. They're not going to be that far off. And, a lot of it is some of the new guys. I mean, CJ has not tackled well. Reddick's missed tackles. But some of the guys TJ Edwards has not tackled as well as last year at times. Epps has been up and down. He's missed his share. Avante missed a big one the other day. It's really everybody. And I have mixed feelings about it because, it's you don't want to see it, but it hasn't hurt them just because it's so hard to drive 80 yards against this team running the ball, for 5 yards a pop. And that's what the run defense really is. People say, the run defense stinks. It's tackling. That's all it is. You make those tackles they made last year and you're back to 4-0 like they were. They've gone from 4-0 to 5-2. And I don't think it's anything but tackling. But, the Detroit game, they were really bad and they made it a focus and they got a lot better for a few weeks. The next 3 weeks, they allowed under 100 yards rushing. And then it's kind of gotten away from them again. So they got a long week. I'm sure it's going to be a priority. They're only the second team in history to go 8-0 and allow 5.2 yards per carry in those 8 games. The other one was the 2006 Colts who won the Super Bowl. So
I don't know what that means.
I think I know what it means. Is it's something that you want to clean up. It's something that's not ideal, but it hasn't killed him, and I don't think it's going to kill him. Now, look, you get into the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and you start tackling, Travis Kelce, or one of them crazy weapons that Andy seems to find out of nowhere, and it's going to hurt you. But against most of these teams, they can get away with it. But look, when it comes to the Titans, the Giants, the Cowboys, even like John Taylor, like I don't know if I don't know if he's healthy yet.
Not quite.
If they'll see him in a couple weeks. But the Colts can't beat the Eagles with John Taylor running. Well, we don't know. Jeff Saturday might throw every snap. We don't know. But I think there's only a few teams that can beat this team because of bad tackling. And they got a couple more weeks to figure it out.
Yeah, I think some of it is schematic, and I'm not excusing, and I'm not saying it's even bad things. I think that sometimes you end up, if your front doesn't get the tackler down, you end up with these undersized players at the second level in kind of disadvantageous spots trying to bring down a running back. Those are tougher tackles, right? Like when you have, Kaiser White in the open field, or, Avante or CJ, those are tougher tackles than when you're in the backfield in some cases. So I think some of it goes hand in hand with scheme. I agree with you, though. It's like I don't want to say it hasn't killed them because it's hurt them, but they're winning because of it. But I think that gets into the situation where you start to say, well, no, you're grading the process, not the result. And it does need to get cleaned up.
Yeah, it does. And I think it will. I don't know if they'll be a great tackling team, but I think these guys have been in the league a long time. They know how to, and I think we haven't seen the numbers to the ball. I think that's the one thing. Now, like you said, a lot of that could be schematic. If you're dropping everyone back, and they've given up fewer big plays than any team in football, and if you're legislating against big plays as much as possible, there's going to be more challenging matchups.
Yeah. And some of it's like, look, and it almost hurt them in Detroit. It didn't. They ended up winning that game. But if you're the Eagles defense and you have a 2-score lead in the late third quarter, right? And you're basically conceding the run, you're pretty happy when a team is running the ball at 5 yards per clip against you. Right? Like you'll take that. That's winning, as Ken would say, that's winning football because they're not going to score enough points to come back and beat you. So I think some of it is that. And in Detroit, it hurt them because Detroit really stuck with the run longer than they anticipated, and they were able to grind it back because the offense had kind of slowed down at that point. But it's a tough way to win in this league if you're going to have to rely on running the football down 2 scores in the second half against a really good offense.
Right.
You'll take that.
Right. It's the games that are close in the second half that concern me.
Which we haven't really seen a bunch
here
of
and there. Yeah. But
now when they're playing Tennessee in week 14 and it's a 1-score game in the second half, it might really matter.
Yeah.
That's where you say, well, I wonder then if they tighten things up. Do you then load the box more because you're like, whoever the quarterback at that point for Tennessee is not going to have the ability to beat you deep. I wonder what Gannon does then.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
And he knows it's got to get better.
The last thing we wanted to talk about was Jalen Hurts as a runner because we haven't seen him much over the last few weeks.
So before we came here, I went over to Reanimator Coffee around the corner and did some research.
Okay.
I'm just going to show this to everyone.
No, we believe you.
So this is really interesting. So I took kneel downs out of the equation, and I thanks to the wonders of Pro Football Reference StatHead Play Finder, you can eliminate kneel downs. And Jalen Hurts' first 5 games of the season had 68 carries in 5 games. So it's about just under 14.
You're right. I thought you were short.
No, I didn't understand my shorthand here.
Okay.
Last 3 games he has 20 carries, so he's gone from average. His last 3 games his carries have gone in half. And the RPO this is really interesting. The first 3 games the Eagles ran 40 RPO plays in the first 3 games. they've run 27 in the last 5 games. So that's gone down. His RPO runs have gone way down. 8 in the first 3 games, just 4 in the last 5 games. But here's the most interesting thing to me. His running attempts on first and second down have almost disappeared. So the first 5 games he had, and I'm just doing the math here in my head as we go, 25 carries on first down the first 5 games, 11 on second down. So that's 36 in 5 games. So it's about 7, just over 7 per game on first and second down. The last 3 games, he only has 7. So it's about 2 per game. He has 5 on first down and 3 on second down.
That's a good way to do it because so many of those late downs are sneaks.
Right. So the third and fourth down numbers are about the same. And I like that because he's such a weapon on those downs. And I think some of this is Miles' growth as a runner where, look, if we're going to run it on first and second down, may as well just give it to Miles instead of Jalen. But to me, the first and second down numbers are really, really interesting. And he's still on pace for the 3rd most carries in history. He's on pace for 187. Obviously, 17 games. Lamar had more a couple times, but
early in the season, though, he was on pace to smash that all-time record.
Yeah, and taking kneel downs out, he's gone 17, 11, 9, 16, 15. That's how many carries he had the first 5 games. The last 3 has been 9, 2, and 9. So the yards have gone way down too. He hasn't had a lot of big plays. Had a lot of big runs. Last year he had 29 runs of 10 yards or more. This year he has 11, and only 2 in the last 3 games. I'm not exactly sure why that is. There isn't a lot. We haven't really seen him get out in the open field and take off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if people are spying him more. I don't know if all the carries he had early in the year have taken a kind of physical toll on him.
Not that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, you watched Lamar last night, the Saints game. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it. I mean, he's just so fast. And Jalen last year had that speed, and I don't quite see it this year. I don't know if it's just the way he's running, if he's being more cautious, if he's looking for the sticks more than open field. But whatever it is, I like it. I thought the first few weeks he was – and look, he's such a playmaker. I understand it, but it was too much. And I think they're at a place now that makes more sense.
Yeah, early in the season, it was like that was the offense. It was a ton of Jalen's running, either him running the ball or his running ability setting up everything in the offense. And they just haven't needed to do it recently.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is A.J. Brown and Goddard and just the way the offense has evolved and what it's turned. I mean, he had 17 without kneel downs. He had 17 carries against Detroit, 16 against Jacksonville, 15 against Arizona. And you add the kneel downs. I mean, there's 5 of them, but that's just too much, and it's a risky way to run an offense. And I'm, the last 3 games, it's been about average 6 carries a game. Well, you feel a lot better about that.
Yeah, I agree with it. You got anything else before we wrap this up? Frank Reich, I just wanted to get your thoughts on Frank Reich getting the axe.
Yeah, I mean, it's not shocking, if Sam Ehlinger, I don't even know how to say his name, but if that was his call, to bench Matt Ryan, if it was Irsay's call, then he's getting fired for something that wasn't his call. Knowing the way the Colts organization runs, it wouldn't surprise me if it was all Jim Irsay on that. Irsay. It's hearsay that it's Irsay. I still think he's a good coach. That was a really difficult situation. He gets there and Andrew Luck retires. He was 28.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. And, what's Frank, 61?
I don't know.
Probably won't get another head coaching job. I wouldn't think.
If you're Nick, do you give him a call?
Yeah. Bring him in, another set of eyes and ears.
Yeah. I don't think that's crazy at all. And we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I think the Eagles have a good internal candidate if Shane Steichen were to get a head coaching gig. But
Patullo?
Oh, I was thinking Brian Johnson.
Yeah, either way. Yeah. I mean, they did pretty well last time he was our offensive coordinator.
And I bet you they'll call Frank in a week to find out what he can Tell them about
I'm
the
sure.
Colts.
I'm sure Frank will share everything.
Even though we
he's
won't know
got.
much about Jeff Saturday's offense.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
That is a weird one. All right. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. You good?
Yeah.
All right. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan live here at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. We'll talk to you soon.